So originally, this was going to be 10 players where I thought I want to talk about how their fanship defines them as human beings. What players do you gravitate towards? And you fall into this category of these individual fans if the player is not a player on your team. So this is not for the fans of teams. This is for the people that are fans of players. Okay? So if you're a fan of a team and you end up just really liking the players that are on that team, this is not for you. These are for my people like myself, and I will tell you who I am. I will tell you which category I fall into when we get to it. But these are for the people who are fans of players and what I believe they say about you. So tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if I'm right, tell me if I disagree, tell me which one you fall into, or if you have an idea for new categories. Okay? The first one is the purist. Okay? The purist is the basketball fan that just likes basketball. Okay? This is Tim Duncan. I threw a couple OG players into this to help reaffirm my point. Okay? Most of the players that are on these slides are players that are currently in the league, because I want to say this is for you current NBA fans. I'm not digging into the OG stuff. But if you're a fan of Jokic, and Jokic, I wanted to call Jokic the simpleton as part of being a purist, because the thing about Jokic is a lot of people think of him as this extraordinary passer and this sort of Jason Williams, white chocolate, flashy player, which he occasionally is. But the thing about Jokic is his game is actually not particularly highlight heavy. If you're an actual Jokic fan, you are a fan of the fact that for some reason he scores easy and he rebounds easy. It is really not much to look at. Really, what you're honestly looking at with Jokic is a lot of putbacks, because he can predict where the ball is going. Wembanyama, same thing. He's not particularly a flashy player. Also, these guys are not getting into trouble off the court. These guys, when the season is over, they disappear. They go away. Okay? So this is what a person appreciates in these players, is they like a guy who plays basketball and then minds his own business. Jokic is not filming himself watching his horses race. Okay? Another thing the purist is a fan of, the way Tim Duncan went out. Kobe did the tour, right? Kobe went, gave everybody a kiss in every stadium all over the country, in Canada. Tim Duncan got to the end of his season and said, I am finished. I think that was the last one. Okay? So the fan traits of the purist, appreciator. If you're a fan of either of three of these guys, or if you have an idea of another player who you believe is a purist, you appreciate objective success. The teams you root for probably win a lot, because by nature, this player is an effective player and not easily distracted. Doesn't draw attention to themselves. I'm saying you as the fan, you do not draw attention to yourselves if these are your players. You are a purist. You don't draw attention to yourself. You are a rule follower for better or worse. You do not try to cheat the system. You do not look for loopholes. You play it the way it's supposed to be played. Some might call you a fundamentalist. And you also don't complain about people looking for loopholes. Okay? The purist is a pretty righteous person. I mean, the name kind of gives that away. So the negative quality wants to be appreciated for not drawing attention to themselves. I'm not saying any of these players do, but I think the purist wants you to know why they like these players. They like these players because they don't draw attention to themselves. What they're really trying to say is, hey, sometimes I feel a bit underappreciated. I get that a little bit from the purists, okay? I chose 12. There are 12 different types of NBA fan you could be because it made sense because of the zodiac. 12 zodiac signs, Chinese zodiac, same thing, 12. So I made it as a clean 12. So the purist can have a tendency to be a little bit joyless at times. Think about these type of people in your friend group, okay? There are a lot of positive qualities about the purist, but one being they may tend to be a little bit focused on obeying the rules and being effective, where they lose a little bit of joy in their life. A little bit of a negative quality doesn't always tend to happen, but I've seen it. Some might consider them to be a bit boring, okay? Sometimes you want a friend that is a little bit of trouble, can, get in their own way a bit. Someone that's willing to take a little bit of a risk, make the story a little more interesting. Sorry, I live in Gotham City, as previously pointed out. There's going to be more fire trucks. A little bit of fearful to express themselves. I think there is a little bit of this element of maybe there is a little bit of a bad boy, bad girl, bad they, them side to them, but they're a little bit afraid to express it because it's hard to get out of the identity of being a purist, of being someone who values fundamental basketball, a person who values the easy play, a person who values being a little bit low key. Once you've sort of established yourself, it's like the straight edge kids who get the straight edge tattoos when they're in high school. They turn 25 and a beer looks pretty good. That is what the purist is. A little bit of repressed emotion, okay? A little bit of a religious bent to them, okay? A little bit of a dogmatic, I believe this thing to be true. I'm also not willing to explore new ideas or the way I feel about my dogmatic beliefs. That really fleshed out. I feel like the purist really fleshed out when I got into it, mid-slide. Let's go down. The believer. Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Chris Paul. I admire the believers. Really what the believers are they are the guys that say, I still think there's a chance. Despite history, I still think we got this, okay? Notice I chose no guy that has a championship ring, okay? They appreciate the skill, though. They know the talent is there. And if they squint hard enough, they can always see success. I do admire these people, but they do have negative qualities, okay? Can't see the faults in the people they idolize, right? Do you know this type of person? They might Russell Westbrook. I find this, being a YouTube content creator, believe me, I've criticized Russell Westbrook a lot. I've said a lot of nasty things about Russell Westbrook. Not about his character. Actually, one time about his character. And I'm sorry. Russ stands show up out of the woodwork, okay? They defend this guy. They remember the good times about Russell Westbrook. Same thing about Chris Paul. A lot of critics about Chris Paul. People that rock with Chris Paul, they think the Clippers are winning a championship this year. They can't see it any other way, okay? Paul George, same way. I feel like these people are getting a little more rare, but as a guy who regularly goes on to Paul George's podcast videos to look at the discourse around it to see if anyone's talking shit, bro, a lot of stands still out there. So for all three of these guys, I believe their fans believe the championship window is still open as long as they don't retire. So what I say about these guys, they attach to things forever, okay? They will never turn on these guys. If you're a fan of any three of these guys, you're a ride or die. You're a down-ass bitch, okay? Can't see the faults in the people... Already repeat. Did I say that? Yeah, can't see the faults in the people they idolize. Refuse to say that any of these guys have ever done anything wrong. Will defend people despite any evidence to the contrary. Not to get political, but I think there's a particular politician that is in office now that the people who really ride or die for him, in my life, who I do know, I've noticed have the ability to see past any wrongdoing that they might do. It becomes irrelevant, like they don't care about maybe a mistake that was made, maybe a misgiving. Seems irrelevant. And I don't necessarily mind this about the believer, because it also means you're willing to see the good in people because you need to. You need to see the good in Paul George, because to see the sins of Paul George would rock your world. It would change the way you perceive reality. I get it. Only remembers the good times. Again, like I said, an inability to acknowledge failures or past mistakes. Appreciates passion, remembers people at their best, and incredibly nostalgic. Loves to reminisce, talk about when times were good, talk about when they almost won a championship, and how cool it was to almost win a championship. Self-identifying leaders as well. I think the believers, the fans of these guys, fancy themselves as leaders. Whether they are leaders or not, I don't know. I don't know these people, but I can tell you they may have taken a leadership workshop at one point in time. Sorry. The father figure. Okay, so I chose the guys who have really focused their branding around being a dad and being wholesome and being marketable in this way. All right? And it's sort of, I have relatives that they will root for any player who is a Christian. And it sort of goes along these lines. It's not necessarily a Christian, but it could definitely be. But they're trying to portray themselves as wholesome. These are your wholesome guys. These are your family men. They do have problems, okay? So this is usually a Christian virtuist. I made that up. You know what I'm saying? Is the Judeo-Christian value system they align themselves with which has a lot to do with protecting immediate family. So these fans appreciate family values, and they are obnoxious about protecting their family, okay? Mainly speaking, Bronny, okay? Somebody talks shit about your son, someone talks shit about your parenting, all of a sudden you're going to overreact. You're going to stand up for your son in ways you do not need to. You're going to overstep boundaries that don't need to be overstepped under the guise of being protective of your family. We can talk a little bit about Steph Curry. In, Arcadia? What's the town in California he lives in? I don't want to Barbara Streisand him, but he wrote a letter to the city council to say, hey, no affordable housing in Atherton. I don't want people looking at my wife in her panties and bra. I know if we put some affordable housing in Atherton, people are going to be looking out their windows trying to sneak a peek of Aisha Curry. No can do. So you're willing to say, there are problems that I noticed with this type of father figure who was willing to do something against the greater good under the guise of trying to protect my family. And there's a lot of people that appreciate that. These are the father figures type fans, okay? Definitely annoying. Definitely a bad sense of humor, okay? Because they don't care. All they care about is the respect and love of their families. If they make a bad joke, if they make a corny ass joke, everyone tells them to leave the bar. They don't care. They'll stick around. They don't care what anyone else thinks. As long as they have the love and respect of their family, they don't care who thinks they're funny or not, no matter how obnoxious they're being. Corny dad. Corny ass dad. And these guys always stay out of trouble. Or they pay someone off to scrub the trouble from the internet. The Gary Cooper. I'm not going to stay on this one long, but if you're a fan of these guys, you are the Gary Cooper. Whatever happened to Gary Cooper? The strong silent type. I was trying to do a Tony and I did a Phil Leotardo. These are hardworking guys and they are underappreciated. But here's the problem. These type of fans believe they're underappreciated, okay? These guys never going to make an outright demand. They're never going to stick up for themselves and say, hey, I want this. Here's my opinion. Here's where I want to go to dinner. Here's where I want to go to dinner tonight. I haven't said my piece in a long time, but they will hold it against you. Again, these guys are Nothing spectacular. Literally never made a spectacle in their life. That is why they appreciate these guys. All right? They're appreciate of the hard-working types. Okay? They're successful. They're never going to let you down because of a lack of effort. That is true. You may achieve success with this person. This person may be successful, they might not be, but they're always going to give 100%. I like these guys, all right? No fan is without their flaws, okay? Whatever happened to Gary Cooper? People like the strong silent type. I'm not saying this is a bad person. Again, much like the purist does not express their feelings. The victim. All right. It's the weekly part of the show where I bully Sixers fans and make them feel bad and make them lose hope. I'm not going to do that. Okay. I chose all injury prone guys. And I find it fascinating. There are these fans who connect with these. This was almost going to be called the sufferer. But I believe the player is the sufferer, but the fan is the victim. The good part about them is, though, they have an infinite amount of compassion and understanding. This is the thing. You can go to this type of fan for sympathy at all times. Tricky part is, they themselves are very emotionally needy. All right? You may be able to come to them for emotional support, but they're coming back tomorrow for the same request. Right? You can get in a toxic relationship, not necessarily dating. I've had friends of mine who have been victims. They've been the victim type fan. Didn't work out. Because you can get in a very toxic relationship with them. Because they need emotional support, you need emotional support, and you both hate each other, but you need each other's emotional support. Am I projecting? Yes, sir. Sure am. They have flashes of brilliance, okay? So, these guys, they have potential. And that's what ultimately makes it more infuriating. Because you knew if they were able to get out of their own way and really start believing that things were within their control and they could actually make headway, they'd be the most successful of any fan. They'd be the best. They're a little bit afraid of success. Okay? They enjoy throwing little pity parties for themselves, possibly more than they would if they were actually trying to reach their potential. They live in the past, they live in what could have been. They would rather mentally masturbate to their own potential than actually go out and see what their potential could do in the real world. Strangely hopeful about the future, though. Even though they're hopeful, they see a future in front of them with them succeeding. They always have a little bit of hope, which is ironic because if they knew what their subconscious was actually doing, they enjoy their suffering. I really went bad on the victim. If I was projecting before, I'm definitely projecting now. I'm thinking of some victims in my head. This is really a therapy session for me. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for hanging out and listening to me process my emotions. And I'm definitely here to hear what you guys have to say. I think this is very important. I think this could be a very fun conversation about human psychology. Okay, the antagonizer. Obviously, you knew I was going to get here. You have a friend who is a fan of Draymond, Jimmy, Luka, Anthony Edwards, all varying degrees of the antagonizer. Like, Anthony Edwards is a different type of antagonizer than Draymond Green. It's how much they can control their emotions and their ability to antagonize. Draymond, if you're a fan of Draymond, this is a very emotional person. This person has no control over their emotions, and they just let it run wild. Think of a person that is a fan of Draymond Green. That's a weirdo. That's an aggressive person. That person is up to no good. That person is antagonizing people. You don't want to drink with an antagonizer. They are an effective manipulator, though. Okay? So be on the lookout. But they know how to manipulate. They know how to get you in trouble, typically. They're usually, if you get in an argument with an antagonizer, you're probably going to lose. So they might be good to have on your side. Mind games come naturally. They don't even really know how to have an honest conversation with a person because they become so accustomed to their own mind games. They can't even have an honest conversation with their mother without doing some type of Jedi mind tricks. Overcompensates lack of talent with the ability to affect others. Okay, so maybe they aren't as skilled at whatever it is they're doing, but their ability to emotionally manipulate and have a little bit of power over other people makes up for it. Now let's talk about their negative quality. Those were all the positive qualities. They know they're wrong, but that's not the point. They don't even consider the other person's argument because it's irrelevant. Their goal is to frustrate you. Their goal is to make you lose your cool before they lose theirs. That's what it's all about. It's not about learning. It's not about understanding someone else's perspective. They're instinctively defensive, even when they're not even being attacked. They're ready. Do you know that type? So these guys, a Jimmy Butler, a Luka, ref says anything to them, they're already defensive. They're already upset. They're already coming at them. Ref might just say, hey, your shoe's untied. There you go. Sorry. I thought you were going to come over here and criticize me, scold me, because that's usually what happens. So they're immediately defensive, and they mistake passion for committedness. They will go down with the ship. You may think Draymond Green, a very passionate player, or is he just committed? Is he just committed to whatever he is doing? Have we mistaken a committedness to something that isn't necessarily winning and mistaken it for passion for the game? The antagonizers have their own mental mind games going on, which may align with victory for the team, but they also may not. And that's something you're always going to have to think about with the antagonizer. The loyalist. These guys, I put Phil Leotardo in here because he didn't do 20 years in the clink for this. How often does that come up? Are we going to hear Damian Lillard talk about his 20 years in the clink and those 2 years he did in Milwaukee? I don't know. Are we going to hear Devin Booker? I mean, Devin Booker is in the clink, right? When do we hear about that? So the loyalist isn't necessarily the most loyal, but it's the person who is always going to wave their loyalty in front of you, okay? So they value being a part of the community. And they're going to let you know, I am a part of their community at any point in time. They want you to know about the sacrifices they've made. 20 years in the clink. They disguise their fear of change as dedication and persistence, right? So they say, all I did for this family, all I did for this organization, all this dedication, when in reality, were you just afraid to not sign your extension because you didn't know when your next meal was coming from? So this is the loyalist. The loyalist isn't necessarily loyal, but the loyalist thinks of himself as loyal. But in reality, he values being a part of the community because he's afraid without it. And he appreciates guys who feel the same way. Do you understand the loyalist? The loyalist is a self-branded term that they came up with. The performer. Now we're getting into a little bit of the fun ones. I didn't mean to put Kyrie in this one. I meant to take his name off. I forgot to erase it. He comes up later. But Jordan Poole, James Harden, Zach LaVine. These are NBA fans who are NBA fans, but they're also a little bit fair weather. I don't think fans of these players are as concerned about championships. I don't think they're as concerned about the NBA. All they know is they like to watch certain players play basketball. I'm a little bit of a performer. I'll be honest. I like James Harden. James Harden retires without a ring. I'm still grateful for the years I got to watch James Harden. Don't really care. Okay? Makes no difference to me as a James Harden fan. He gave me what I wanted. So they appreciate flash and style. Very superficial people, like myself. They're very impatient, though. Okay? They're not going to be watching James Harden every night. They're probably going to catch the highlight reel. Same thing with Zach LaVine and Jordan Poole. Most of the consumption of this player happens on YouTube compilations, okay? So while they do like them, they're also happy just watching their small bits. They're not going to check in every night and watch this player play. So they have a short attention span. They value style over substance. Probably a bit of a materialist. Probably a bit of a money spreader. They probably got Rick Owens. They probably got Supreme. They probably got Saint Laurent. They probably drive that cheapest version of a Maserati. Do you know a performer? I drive a Honda Fit, so like I said, I'm not an actual performer. The window licker. Typically, these are younger fans, and I don't mean to criticize them, but these are the fans that are, it's sort of a heightened version, I believe. I might have said this in the slide, but it's a little bit of a heightened version of the performer. This is a complete disassociation from team success. This is almost like the meme enjoyer. They want to be a part of a community. They want to be a part of something. A very passionate community that isn't entirely sure why it's so passionate, okay? LaMelo Ball, hot Cheeto dust on his toes, tattooed on his toes, all right? I like LaMelo Ball, but he is all style, no substance. Does he play? Sometimes. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. To be honest, I don't care. If I want my LaMelo Ball fix, I'll go watch the 23-minute LaMelo Ball highlight reel over his entire career. I'll watch that if I want my LaMelo Ball fix, okay? Cam Thomas, why do I like him? I like the way he shoots. I like the way he just chucks. Also, all my 18-year-old friends, all my 16-year-old friends. I'm a 36-year-old man. You think I don't got 16-year-old friends? I'm a fucking weirdo. My best friends are children. We all like Cam Thomas. We all go to the movie theater. Doesn't matter what movie theater we go, what movie we're gonna watch. We go chicken jockey shit. We go chicken jockey wild. We have no respect. We have no morals. We're children. John Morant, doesn't matter what he does. Doesn't matter what he does. We like him because he owns a gun. And he goes to strip clubs. And we think that type of stuff is cool. We are the window lickers of the NBA fan world. What else did I write down? We can't watch an entire game. We ain't ever watched an entire game in our lives. We went to a game once, played on our phone the entire time. We love a good spectacle, but we probably have a sense of humor. That's to be debated. The professional. The guy that shows up. He does his job. If you work with a professional, a guy that's Shea, Donovan Mitchell, DeMar DeRozan, these are the professionals. If you're a fan of one of these guys, you are the professional. Here, let me tell you something about yourself. You do your job. Everyone likes you at work. You are celebrated most in your life when you are at work because you do all your side work before close. Before the store is closed, you've already done all your side work. When someone knows they're working with you, they know they're going home on time. All right? You're the fastest guy with the mop. Right? You lock the bathroom doors 5 minutes before close. That's who you are. You're no drama at work. Because you got to go home. You got kids. But the shifts, kind of unmemorable. That's not necessarily good, not necessarily bad. You know, sometimes an unmemorable shift is what you want. It's ideal. Nothing went sideways. You also never call in sick. That's for my professionals. I am not a professional. I am not a fan of any of these players. The hipster. This is the NBA hipster picks. Now, this is where Kyrie Irving is. If you're Kyrie Irving, if you're a Kevin Durant fan, if you're a Klay Thompson, there is something about you that is a bit of a contrarian, okay? Klay Thompson, more so, you are a bit of an emotional, you're a little bit emotional. You're a very nice person, but you can be irked. And you can overreact to things. Kyrie Irving, if you're a Kyrie Irving fan, you're a little bit spiritual. And you fancy yourself a bit of a humanitarian. And then if you're a Kevin Durant fan, I think you're one of those people that's very interested in human psychology. I think you're one of those people. I think you're a fan of the anti-hero because you see something in yourself in them. But let's look at what I wrote down. This is the guy who thinks you're his coolest friend, who thinks he's your coolest friend, if that makes sense. So you're friends with him, and he probably says, yeah, I'm that guy's coolest friend. I'm pretty cool. All of his other friends are pretty lame. He probably thinks of me as, valuable because I give him street cred. Your friend who thinks he's on some type shit. Definitely listens to Joe Rogan, or at least had a phase when he was big into like Lex Fridman, Joe Rogan. Maybe had a Jordan Peterson kick, okay? And I'm not talking he tuned in, like it was his personality for a couple months. Very sensitive, but hates being called out on it, okay? Very sensitive person. Can sort of get a little passive aggressive. They hate how sensitive they are, right? They're never going to say, hey, you hurt my feelings. I didn't like the way you talked to me back there. It made me feel small. They're never going to approach you like that, but they may come in a little passive aggressive. And you're going to hurt their feelings, and they're not going to let you know about it. But they're always fun to talk to. They got some thoughts. They've got some insights, and they live alone. And they've been waiting to share their insights with some people. The appreciator. These are the people, if you're fans of these guys, you're the appreciator. You show love. You look at these guys, and this is really what I am. I am the appreciator, okay? This is your girlfriend's favorite player. Also, this is your GF's favorite player. That's good. If I'm your girlfriend, I'm a good girlfriend. What I'm trying to tell you is I would make a good girlfriend. I would appreciate you. If your girl says, man, I just love that Pascal Siakam, keep her. That girl loves you, okay? She is not impressed by any type of flirtation, any type of ostentatious behavior, okay? She likes consistency. This is the opposite of the performer. You're never going to remember anything they ever did. You're just going to remember they were there, and we got some work done. We did some damage, okay? They're also a know-it-all. They can be a bit of a know-it-all, but they feel no remorse. Oh, wait, no, this is... Never copy-paste a slide. Always proofread your slide. I read that about the appreciator, and I'm like, that's the hipster. True know-it-all. We're going back to the hipster, because this is very important. True know-it-all never feels remorse for being wrong. Do you know what I'm talking about? They may be incredibly wrong, proven wrong. They're just going to say, what? I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm wrong. You're going to be upset because of how sure they were about their point. And how they swore their life on it. They swore on their mother's grave it was this way. And when they're wrong, they're like, what do you want me to do? Kill my mother? Not going to do it. They're always fun to talk to. So my bad. My bad on this. The last two character traits about the appreciator meant to be on the hipster. And I apologize. So that's the appreciator. That's probably what I am most identifying as. And that's it. We did it. That was all 12 slides. I guess we're done. There is a Patreon. This week I talked about what I want to see next season. We scraped the bottom of the barrel. I shit all over Michael Porter Jr., a man I've never met. I criticized him and his family. We had a really enjoyable time. Nice little negative fun. But yeah, join the Patreon if you're interested in that type of stuff. It's $2 and you get a podcast every week. It is the cheapest Patreon that I know of, unless you're the type of person that has a free Patreon. So be good to your mothers, eat a corn dog, like the video, subscribe. We're done here.